Disclaimer: this content is for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. I never thought a single night could change everything, but it did. That night when my husband walked in, my life took a turn I never saw coming. It started like any other evening. The house was quiet, the soft hum of the television playing in the background as I sat on the couch, lost in thought. My husband, Daniel, had been working late more often than usual. I told myself it was normal. Long hours, deadlines, the usual stress. But deep down, something felt off. Then the front door creaked open. I turned, expecting to see him walk in like he always did, tired, distracted, maybe with a small smile if he noticed me waiting. But this time, something was different. The way he hesitated in the doorway, the unreadable expression on his face, the weight of the silence between us, it sent a shiver down my spine. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual, but my voice wavered. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked in, slowly, almost too carefully, as if measuring each step. My heart pounded. I couldn't explain why, but I knew something had happened. And whatever it was about to change everything. What would you do if, in a single moment, you realized your relationship wasn't what you thought it was? Have you ever experienced a night that left you questioning everything? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, don't forget to vote in the poll and tell me, do you believe in trusting your instincts or do you wait for proof? Stay tuned because what happened next? I never could have imagined. Daniel stood in the doorway, his eyes scanning the room as if he wasn't sure he had stepped into the right house. My stomach twisted into knots. Something about the way he looked at me, like he was seeing me for the first time, or maybe the last, sent a wave of unease through my chest. "Daniel?" I tried again, my voice barely above a whisper. He finally shut the door, but he didn't answer right away. Instead, he let out a long breath, the kind that comes when someone is carrying something too heavy, something they don't know how to put into words. I felt the air shift between us. It wasn't just exhaustion on his face, it was something else. Guilt? Fear? I couldn't tell, but I knew it wasn't nothing. He loosened his tie, running a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I had seen 100 times before, but never quite like this. "We need to talk," he said finally. Those 4 words made my pulse spike. We need to talk. Has anything good ever followed that sentence? I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay calm. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Then talk." He hesitated, looking at me like he was trying to figure out where to start. And in that moment, my mind went wild. What could it be? Had something happened at work? Was he in trouble? Had I done something wrong? Or, no, I refused to let my mind go there. But the doubt had already slipped in, wrapping around my thoughts like a vine. The silence stretched between us, filling the space with invisible weight. I hated it. I needed him to just say it, whatever it was. I shifted on the couch, my hands gripping the fabric like it could somehow ground me. "Daniel, you're scaring me," I admitted, my voice quieter than before. His gaze softened for just a second, but then he looked away, as if whatever he was about to say was too heavy to meet my eyes. "You trust me, right?" he asked suddenly. The question knocked the breath from my lungs. Trust. That single word carried more weight than I was ready for. And just like that, I knew whatever was coming next would change everything. What do you think he's about to say? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever had a moment where your whole world felt like it was about to flip upside down, I want to hear about it. Stay tuned, because this is just the beginning. I stared at Daniel, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Trust him? Of course I trusted him. Didn't I? His question lingered in the air, thick and suffocating. I wanted to answer right away, to say yes without hesitation, but something in his voice, the way his fingers twitched slightly at his sides, made me pause. "What's going on, Daniel?" I asked instead, my voice quieter now. He sighed, rubbing his temples like he was trying to figure out how to put something impossible into words. "Just promise me," he said. "Promise me you'll listen before you react." I swallowed hard. That didn't sound good. "Daniel, you're freaking me out," I admitted, my grip tightening on the armrest. "Just tell me what's wrong." His jaw tensed. For a moment he looked past me, staring at the wall like it held all the answers he was too afraid to say out loud. And then, finally, he spoke. "I've been keeping something from you." The words hit like a punch to the gut. 100 scenarios flashed through my mind, each one worse than the last. "What do you mean?" I whispered. His eyes flicked back to me, full of something unreadable. Guilt? Regret? Fear? Before he could answer, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. The sudden vibration made me jump, shattering the moment. I glanced down. Unknown number. I ignored it, my attention locked on Daniel. "Say it," I pressed. "Whatever it is, just say it." The phone buzzed again. This time Daniel glanced at it too, and for the briefest second, I saw something flicker across his face. Recognition. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "Who is that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything I needed to know. I snatched up the phone, my hands trembling as I stared at the screen. The call ended. A moment later, a message appeared. 3 words, simple. "Director." Enough to make my breath catch. "Did you tell her?" I looked up at Daniel, my stomach twisting into knots. "Who is this?" He didn't answer right away. And in that moment, I knew. Whatever he had been hiding, it was about to come crashing down. What do you think Daniel is hiding? Drop your theories in the comments. And if you've ever had that moment where your gut told you something was wrong, were you right? Stay tuned. You won't believe what happens next. My fingers tightened around the phone as I read the message again. "Did you tell her?" The words sent a chill down my spine, my pulse racing so fast it felt like my body was trying to warn me of something I wasn't ready to face. I looked up at Daniel, searching his face for answers. He didn't speak. He didn't even move. It was as if he was frozen in place, caught between whatever truth he was hiding and the moment it all came crashing down. "Who is this?" I asked again, my voice sharper this time. Daniel exhaled slowly, his hands balling into fists at his sides. "I was going to tell you," he said, almost too softly. My phone buzzed again. Another message. "I'm done waiting. She deserves to know." My breath caught. My hands felt cold, my stomach twisting painfully. Whoever this was, they weren't backing down. And Daniel, he looked like a man standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing the fall was inevitable. "Tell me what's going on, Daniel," I demanded, my voice shaking now, because clearly someone thinks I should know something. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing now, his movements frantic, restless. "It's not what you think," he said, but the words felt empty. "Then what is it?" My voice cracked, frustration bubbling to the surface. "Because right now, it looks a lot like you've been lying to me." He stopped, meeting my gaze, and for the first time since he walked through that door, I saw it. The fear in his eyes. Not just guilt. Fear. My phone buzzed again. This time, a picture. I didn't want to look. Every part of me screamed that once I saw it, there would be no going back. But my hands moved on their own, unlocking the screen. The image loaded slowly. My heart pounded with every second that passed. And then, there it was, clear as day. I sucked in a sharp breath. My body went still. The room felt too small, the air too thick. I looked up at Daniel, my vision blurring at the edges. What is this? He didn't answer. He couldn't, because in that moment, we both knew nothing would ever be the same again. What do you think was in the picture? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever faced a truth you weren't ready for, tell me how you handled it. Stay tuned, because the next part will change everything. The picture stared back at me, my hands trembling as I held the phone. My mind struggled to make sense of what I was looking at. The image wasn't blurry. It wasn't some mistake. It was real, and it changed everything. I looked up at Daniel, waiting for him to explain, to tell me this wasn't what it looked like. But he didn't. He just stood there, his face pale, his lips pressed into a thin line like he was bracing for impact. Say something, I whispered, my voice barely holding together. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. I can explain. I let out a hollow laugh, though there was nothing funny about this. Then explain, Daniel. Right now, because I am this close to walking out that door. He reached for me, but I took a step back. I couldn't let him touch me, not when I didn't even know who he really was anymore. Before he could speak, my phone buzzed again. Another message. My stomach twisted as I glanced down. He won't tell you the truth, but I will. Call me. I felt a wave of nausea rise in my throat. Whoever this was, they weren't just some stranger. They knew Daniel. They knew me. And worst of all, they knew something I didn't. I looked at Daniel, my chest rising and falling too fast. Who is this? I demanded, holding up my phone. And don't you dare lie to me. His lips parted like he was going to answer. But then, bang! A sudden loud noise from outside made me jump. It sounded like something, or someone, had slammed against the front door. My breath hitched. Daniel's head whipped toward the sound, his entire body going tense. Stay here, he muttered, moving toward the door. Are you kidding me? I shot back. Like hell I'm staying here after everything that's happened. Another bang. This time, the doorknob rattled. My pulse pounded in my ears. I grabbed Daniel's arm, my voice barely a whisper now. Who is out there? He didn't answer, but the look in his eyes told me he had a very good idea. A third bang, then silence. I swallowed hard. Every part of me screamed to run, to leave before this got worse. But I couldn't move, not until I knew the truth. Daniel reached for the doorknob. I held my breath. Then, what do you think is about to happen? Would you open the door or run? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever been caught in a moment where everything felt out of control, how did you handle it? Stay tuned, because things are about to take an even darker turn. Daniel hesitated, his hand gripping the doorknob so tightly his knuckles turned white. My heart pounded as I stood frozen, every nerve in my body telling me that whatever was on the other side of that door would change everything. Then, he turned the knob. The door swung open, and standing there, drenched from the rain, was a woman. She looked right past Daniel and locked eyes with me. Her face was familiar, though I couldn't place where I had seen her before. But the moment she spoke, everything clicked. You don't know me, she said, breathless. But you should. Daniel let out a sharp breath, running a hand through his hair. This isn't the way. Enough, Daniel, she snapped, stepping forward. Her gaze softened as she looked at me. You deserve the truth. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Then tell me. She exhaled, then said the words that sent my world spinning. He's not who you think he is. I turned to Daniel, my chest tightening. What is she talking about? His jaw clenched. Let me explain. No, the woman cut in. I gave you a chance, Daniel. You didn't take it. Now she needs to know. She reached into her bag and pulled out a stack of papers. She handed them to me, her hands shaking slightly. I stared at them, then slowly flipped through. My breath caught. Documents, different names, bank statements, travel records, and then buried in the stack, a marriage certificate, but not ours. My vision blurred as I looked up at Daniel, my hands trembling. Tell me this isn't real. He didn't answer. I took a step back. Oh my God. The woman's voice was quiet now. He's been living a double life. I shook my head, refusing to believe it. Number this. This has to be a mistake. Daniel finally spoke, his voice low, desperate. It's not what it looks like. I let out a hollow laugh, my chest aching. Then what is it, Daniel? Because right now, it looks like my entire life has been a lie. Silence. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. Ask him about what happened last summer. I looked up at Daniel, my stomach twisting. And in that moment, I realized the biggest secret was still waiting to be uncovered. What do you think happened last summer? Drop your theories in the comments. And don't go anywhere, because this story isn't over yet. Daniel's face paled as I held up my phone, the words on the screen sending a fresh wave of nausea through me. Ask him about what happened last summer. I could barely breathe. My thoughts raced as I replayed every conversation, every late night, every excuse he had ever given me. How had I not seen it before? I turned to him, my voice breaking. What happened last summer, Daniel? The woman beside me crossed her arms, watching him closely. She already knew. She was just waiting for me to finally hear the truth. Daniel ran a hand over his face, exhaling shakily. I never wanted you to find out like this, he muttered. Then maybe you shouldn't have lied, I shot back, my anger rising. Tell me the truth, Daniel. Every single thing. He hesitated, then finally met my eyes. I was already married when I met you, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I told myself it didn't matter because I was going to fix it. But then I didn't. And the longer I waited, the harder it got. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. My entire marriage, our home, our life, it was all built on a lie. The woman beside me scoffed. Fix it, she repeated, her voice laced with disbelief. You weren't going to fix anything, Daniel. You were just going to keep lying until you got caught. I shook my head, my eyes burning. How could you do this to me? I loved you, he said, his voice raw. I still do. I let out a bitter laugh. You don't lie to people you love, Daniel. For the first time, he looked truly defeated. But it was too late.